David, will you please read the standard Zoom meeting notice? Thank you.
Yes. This meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with the emergency ordinance number 20-A16, an emergency ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID-19 disaster. The committee members who are electronically present at the meeting are Marty Meth, Rick Seaman, Lee Condor, Tom Paoletti, Judy Schlusel, Dolores Carr.
That's not on me.
Peter
Thompson.
Peter Thompson, Nicole Scrow,
Brian McMillan.
And Brian McMillan. Did I catch everybody?
So far, yes.
Okay, and Dan Bailey from the Planning Commission representative, and Ned Galloway from the Board of Supervisors. Both liaisons are present. Persons responsible for receiving public comment are the Places29 RIO Community Advisory Committee. The opportunities for the public to access and participate in the electronic meeting are posted on the Albemarle County calendar. And the staff that are available today are Carolyn Schaefer, clerk to the Board of Supervisors, David Benish, Development Process Manager, and we have Mariah Gleason, Senior Planner, and we have Serena Gruria from our Cape office, also here in attendance for a later agenda. That's it.
Okay, thank you. And I noticed Todd Cohn came on board too, Tom.
Okay.
So 2 people who are unaccounted for are Nancy and Audrey right now. Okay, so first order of business is to approve last month's meeting minutes. Anybody have any corrections, changes, comments? Judy, please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Yes, under the section that says RIO.ZMA, number 2, sort of a little bit of a technicality, the site formerly known as Parkway Place. Perhaps it should have been previously known.
That's fine.
Okay, and then the other thing, number 3, okay, the presentation of the CAC was not required. Parkway Place / Rio Point taken out of deferral at Board of Supervisors public hearing. That hasn't happened. And then also you shouldn't use Parkway Place / Rio Point, because when you use the slash, you can use either word interchangeably. And that's not the case anymore. And it wasn't taken out of deferral at that meeting.
That's a good point, really.
Put into deferral, place in deferral, or deferred?
Well,
go ahead, Judy.
I was going to say, but it's still in deferral. Has it been asked? I don't know, Ned, has it been asked to be taken out of deferral?
I think in the minutes, wasn't it that we had talked about it may be deferred? It's in deferral. It got deferred the first time.
Right.
So it's not come back before the board. I know that at this last meeting, we talked about it was scheduled to come back to us in August, but then it got held off or deferred or pushed back, not at the board's request, at the applicant's request, to October.
No, actually, now it's November, I understand.
Well, whatever the time frame is, it's been changed from August. But so at the time, we didn't know any of that at the time. So
right. I would just get rid of eliminate the second sentence. Just say presentation CAC was not required. That's true, Tom. And then leave the rest of it out.
Okay.
That'd be clear.
An agreement.
Okay.
Thanks.
So can you make a motion now, Judy, to accept with your changes?
Okay. I make a motion that the minutes for the RIO 29 CAC meeting of July the 22nd be approved as amended.
I have a second. Okay, Lee, second. All in favor? Raise your hand, please. Okay. Anybody against? Thank you. The minutes are approved. Let's get on to the business of the meeting. Our next item is a community meeting for SP 2020, a couple of zeros, 12, the Educational Transform Meeting Center. Maria Gleason from the staff, why don't you take the microphone and conduct this portion of the meeting?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to pull up my screen now. Yeah.
Mariah, while you're doing that, this is Ned. So that both CACs know, this spot is kind of outside of the. Yeah, can you hear me talking, Mariah? I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. I was just explaining that this particular location doesn't really fall within either of the two CACs, but to help facilitate a community meeting, I agreed that both CACs would likely have interest in this, and then we asked to bring everybody together in one meeting just so they wouldn't have to have two different meetings. Yes. Thanks, Mariah.
No, thank you for that introduction. I think it's helpful to know, and I'll kind of point out where the site is further in the presentation. So just to kind of go over it again, this portion of the meeting is being held as a virtual community meeting for SP 2021-00012 Education Transformation Center. It does exist outside of both of the development area, or the development area in general, and is in the rural area, but is close enough that we thought we might be able to facilitate it within these structured CAC meetings. So thank you for having us tonight. Again, my name is Mariah Gleason. I'm a senior planner 2 in the planning division of Albemarle County. I'm also the lead staff reviewer for this project. If you've attended a community meeting in the past year, this presentation may look familiar to you. We use a standard template when talking about special use permits and similar projects and community meetings. The purpose of community meetings relative to special use permits is that they provide space to share information about the proposed project, the development review process, and relevant policies and regulations that may apply to the specific application. Community meetings are also a way for the applicant and county to solicit input on the proposed project. A summary of this input is included in the staff report that's reviewed by the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors. To provide some context for the review process of development projects in the county, we have this graphic. And it may be a bit fuzzy, but what you can see here in colored blocks are stages of the county development process. And I can talk more about the overall process, but the important takeaway here is that this project is at the beginning of the process. The county zoning ordinance dictates what can be done by right on a property today. County staff review proposed developments to make sure that they meet the regulations contained in the zoning ordinance and protect public health, safety, and welfare. Legally, staff cannot deny a by right use. The review process for a by right use is called an administrative review. The process we are currently in is called a legislative review, which means that the project has to be approved by the Board of Supervisors. This is because the applicant is requesting a use on the property that is not a by right use, but is instead a special use. Special use applications have a higher level of review. That includes review by the typical reviewing agents and authorities, such as VDOT, Albemarle County Service Authority, if applicable, the county engineer, building inspections, fire rescue. It also includes review by the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. So the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors consider special use applications at meetings that are referred to as public hearings. Public hearings include presentations by staff, the applicant, and a public comment period. You are more than welcome to attend and comment on this project at those meetings as additional opportunities beyond this meeting tonight. Though I should say that no date has been set for either of those meetings yet. When reviewing or considering a special use permit, the aspects or factors to be considered include 4 things. the evaluation of whether the proposed use will create substantial detriment to the adjacent parcels, whether the character of the nearby area is unchanged, whether the proposed special use will be in harmony with the proposed with the purpose and intent of the zoning district, and if it's consistent with a comprehensive plan. So this is my last section. So before I turn this over to the applicant, I'm going to quickly share some basic introductory information about the project. Again, this proposal is right outside of the development area, which are located further. Sorry, I was pointing to the wrong screen. It's the development area is in this direction. So this is right across the bridge. It's located on tax map 45, parcel 31D at 2001 Earlysville Road. The proposed use is for a private school use in an existing church building. And the property is 3.28 acres in size. No special exceptions to the county code are being requested with this proposal. Also, the applicant is not proposing any exterior changes to the site, although some outdoor space might be used for recreation and as outdoor classrooms. This is the last slide. So in terms of the timeline of this application, comments were sent to the applicant on July 2nd. The applicant is planning to submit revised materials to address comments provided by staff. And as of now, there is no set date for the Planning Commission public hearing or the Board of Supervisors public hearing. And after the applicant's presentation, during the discussion, if there are other things that you think about and want to comment on or have questions about after this meeting, feel free to send your comments or questions to me by September 2nd. That's 1 week from now. And that just will help kind of consolidate all of the feedback and information and discussion that happened tonight. So I've provided my email, and if we could come back to this slide at the end of the applicant's presentation, just so people can copy down the email address if wanted, that would be greatly appreciated. Time, obviously being cognizant of time there. So I'm gonna stop sharing, and I'm actually gonna hand this over to Dr. Dolores Carr, who is the applicant for this proposal. So Dr. Carr, if you'd like to present and share.
Okay, thank you so much. Just give me a second to switch over. While we're waiting, I want to thank each of you for your time and the opportunity to present to you all this evening. Some of you may have heard about Education Transformation Center. We're not new to the area, and we're definitely not new to the county. ETC, Education Transformation Center, is an alternative education program, and it's designed to help prevent negative for teens.
Dr. Carr, we can't see your presentation.
Okay, hold on. Hold on, I thought I shared. Hold on just a second. Are you able to see it now?
Yes.
Great.
The whole thing, you need to change it to
slides, I will.
Yeah.
Let's take it from the top. So again, Education Transformation Center is an alternative education program. We call it short-term high impact because of the fact we believe that in a little bit of time, if it's concentrated and focused, that we can help students to make some positive changes in their behavior and in their mental health. Education Transformation Center is an alternative education program, and it is designed to prevent negative encounters with the justice system, also in reducing detentions and in and out of school suspensions. One of the things we try to instill in children and our teens to let them know, you are not responsible for your beginning. The mess that you've been in, the things that you've seen, the things that you've experienced, and the trauma that you face, it has nothing to do with you. You're not responsible for your beginning, but you are responsible for your ending. Our mission statement, and we hold true to this, we endeavor to create an atmosphere of relaxed alertness. And this is where there's a combination of we're stressing for students to reach to their highest potential and expectations in a community and in an atmosphere where they're not threatened or being intimidated because of questions they may ask or the things that they believe. And so we want them to know this is your comfort zone. This is your area where you can do that freely. Our objectives are, we want to reduce high school dropout rate, again, eliminate the detentions and in and out of school suspensions, eliminate a lot of the, or reduce the antisocial behaviors. We want to teach healthy decision-making, provide measurable outcomes, not only just for ETC, but for the student as well, so that they can see, you know, maybe when they left their home school, they were having 20 referrals a week. Maybe when they return, they have 5. So it's a measurable outcome for both them and for ETC to see that they are improving. Now, I'm gonna go to this last one. Our goal and one of the focus that we have at ETC is that we want to help students find their passion. When you find your passion, you have a purpose for living and you will live on purpose. Our curriculum is made up of 6 weeks, and it starts with the very first week of saying, why are you here? What did you do that caused you to be in this particular facility? And we work through that, whether it's through anger management, the mental health part of it, the traumas that they may have experienced. Again, going through the passion identification and making sure that they understand when they leave there that there is a pathway, and we help them design what educational plan that may be all the way till they leave the program in 6 weeks. Now, 6 weeks, if they feel like they're not ready to leave, the school is not ready to receive them back, they can stay longer. So, but this is the guide just to get them going. I want to explain the difference between the traditional alternative education program and Transformation Education Center, ETC. And I want to make sure I'm very clear. It's not that we're better than anyone else. It's not that we're trying to prove that. It's just that the way we're set up, and as we're smaller, we have a lot more time to focus on the individual, and we can help them really zone in on some of the behaviors that oftentimes they blame on others when they can see that as a focus for themselves. So, and another major point for us is that the traditional high school, the traditional education programs, alternative programs, they do not have an exit plan. We plan on you leaving. I like to think of it as with my own children, the day you were born, I had a plan for you to leave and not to come back. So our goal is that we equip them with the things that they need and that they don't return. But if they need our assistance, even at the home high school, we will work with them through graduation, whatever that may be. If we need to get additional tutors for them, if they need to call us to mediate for them, we will be with them until graduation. The program, the curriculum is set up into, if you split it out, it would be into 3 sections: life skills, the traditional things that we need to do to prepare them for workplace readiness and business and decision and goal making, and then passion identification. Again, without a passion, it's very difficult for you to focus on what's the purpose of education. So we really want to make sure that we give them that sense of how you find it and work on that, in addition to the group and individual mental health counseling. Our model is an integrative and alternative education is designed to eliminate some of the stigma that often goes with mental health. That if you say you're going to see a counselor or you have mental health issues, and we all know, particularly at this time, a number of not just teens, but people are facing mental health crisis. So we want to do a seamless combination of working with their mental health, working with their life skills, in addition to their education, their academics. So what happens here is that we want to make sure that when they return back to their home high school, that they are up to date with what is going on in the classroom. So, because if they go back and they're not up to date on what's happening and in real time in the classroom, we're going to repeat those behaviors again. So we work with the high school and their teachers to make sure assignments are sent to us and they're completed in class with us, and then they're returned back to the teacher. Our services that we offer are therapeutic mental health. And again, these are individually person-centered for planning purposes. And we use the ACE assessment, so they're getting a full assessment. And then we take what we find out about them, the mental issues that they may be facing, and we want to teach them techniques and strategies and coping skills that they can use when they feel that these things are coming on. So when they're back at the high school, they know what they need to do. Our outcomes. The outcome is that we are working with the host, the home high school, and we want to bridge that gap and working with the student, the parent, the mental health professionals, everything with the purpose of return back to the school full time, to the traditional setting, once all the mental health goals are met and the intensive levels of services are no longer needed. And I just wanted to show you the facility that at 2001 Earlysville Road. The top is the sanctuary, and down at the bottom where, So down at their lower level where the social hall is, that's actually the common area for the cafeteria and the social class, that's the social room for the church as well. And the activity space is what we use for additional class space in addition to the 2 classrooms and office space. And we are a non-discrimination facility and program. So that is that part of it. If you have some additional questions at this time you would like to ask, feel free to do so.
Well, first, let's see if the board members have questions. Judy, did you raise your hand?
Yes. Thank you for the presentation. I have a couple of questions that I was taking some notes.
Yes.
So I'll just list them. How many kids are in the program? Do you have a maximum number? Is it high school only? Are they referred just by their home high school or by some other outside source? And what about transportation? Who provides that? So I'll let you answer all those. Okay. Thank you.
All right. And if I forget one, just bring me back. The max students that we take will be 24. And ETC is just almost like an emergency shelter. So when students are removed from their home high school, whether it's behavioral, drugs, whatever, we're just another option that they have. And we take them, generally we want to keep it with the high school, but there are a few middle school students that may be on that 13, 14 end, and they would be permitted to attend the program once we had a one-on-one. The students are brought to school via their school district, so the students are not permitted to drive. So that helps to reduce the parking issues. And it also ensures that they get there because that car could take another route. So, and did I catch all of them? Thank you. Oh, yes.
Marty, you're muted.
I'm sorry, I forgot to say that for those who are attendees, if you use the raise the hand function, we'll let you in one at a time to ask questions as well. So let me go back. Anybody else have questions on the board? Going once.
Mr. Seaman.
Okay. Rick?
All right, that's a very interesting presentation, and I have to admit that up until now, I was not familiar with ETC. I find it very interesting. What I'm curious about is the schools that participate in this program. You know, how wide ranging are the students that?
We have marketed to all Albemarle County, Charlottesville City schools, and all the surrounding counties. So we have approximately 7 schools that we have marketed to, and they have the potential of bringing students. The students, the students have, they can be recommended or referred to us by their teacher, their school, and sometimes parents have found out about us and asked to participate in the program.
Now, do you have? You said that you were limited to 24. Are you thinking about expanding, and do you now have a waiting list?
No, we don't have a waiting list. At this time, the space that the 2001 facility only will allow us to have 24. Should that, and now remember, they're cycling out. So it's not like they're after 6 or 7 months, there'll probably be space to bring someone else in.
Okay.
But you might be able to do it on a kind of an emergency basis where you really got somebody who is in crisis and needs help immediately.
Yes, for sure. And then like this summer, we did a 10-week summer program with Stars, which is a residential home for teens in Charlottesville. We went to that facility versus them coming to the school.
Other questions? Okay, any attendees? I don't see anybody just raise their hand. I just have a quick question.
Lee has his hand. Lee has his hand raised.
Oh, Lee? Okay, gotta raise your hand a little higher. Go ahead, Lee. You're muted right now. Still muted.
Okay, Dr. Carr, where are you operating out of now?
Right now, I have taken an apartment and converted it into a school in Albemarle County.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay. I just was curious, do you have some outdoor facilities for the kids? You have teenagers. They can't be sitting in class all day.
At the new facility, as well as where we are now, there's an acre of open space.
I see. Okay, great. Okay.
We have 2 people with their hands up so far. I'm going to get Kathy Seegers to go first. Kathy, please unmute yourself and you can start speaking.
Yes, this is Dave and Kathy Seegers. We live on 2150 Earlysville Road, just up the road. First, we wanted to know what the hours are. Second, we'd like to know if there's any possibility for overnight stays. And finally, of the students, are there volunteer opportunities for local residents?
First, the hours are with students, they're from 8 to 3, staff 7:30 to 4 o'clock. And there will never, God be my helper, be an overnight facility. And yes, there are opportunities for the students to volunteer outside of school time.
Thank you.
How about success rate?
Is there a success rate for this program?
Okay. So we're fairly new. So if I tell you that we just graduated our first 2 students this year, so that would put us at 100%. I received the letter from the STARS program, which we saw 10 to 12 students, and they gave us outstanding recommendation for the services that we provided, which occupied, as they put it, their participants over 90% of the time.
Thank you.
We like to say we prepared for 100%, whether they participated, all of it, but we were prepared 100% of the time.
All right, next I have Cynthia Neff. Go ahead, Cynthia, unmute yourself and ask your question.
I don't really have a question. I just really wanted to make a comment that I think this is an amazing effort, and it's a shame that we don't have more of this kind of service available. I mean, in a lot of the work I do around the community, that the mental health issues are not being addressed. I've had conversations with Elizabeth Irvin and the Women's Initiative, and they just don't have help for some of these people. And so I think, getting these kids in a place where there's stability, yet you're dealing with the issues that you have to deal with because of them, is amazing. So I wish you all the luck.
Thank you so much.
At this time, I don't have anybody else with their hand up. So anybody else on the attendee side that would like to ask a question or make a comment, please raise your hand at this time. I don't have any hands raised. We can come back to you, Mariah or Dr. Carr.
Hey, if we have a moment, I would like to put up that screen with my email, but I also understand if you need to move on. So I could say it real quick if you would rather.
Put up your screen, go ahead for a second.
Okay. I'm just gonna do this because it's fastest. So again, if there's something that we didn't cover in the discussion, but you would like to send in, you could do that by September 2nd, which is 1 week from tonight. And my email is below. It's mgleason@albemarle.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Good luck, Dr. Carr. We'll move on to our next item.
Thank you again for your time.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation. It was very, very informative.
Thank you so much.
The next item on our agenda is the Rio Corridor Study, an introduction to draft concepts. And I'm going to turn this over to David Benish. David, you start.
Okay, thank you, Marty. Jump right into it. The project team that's been working on the corridor plan is ready to begin presenting some of the concepts for the phase 1 portion of the Rio Road corridor plan. Because of the depth of the information involved in presenting the concepts, we felt it was the best approach would be to provide presentation videos on the project, on our project website, the hub site. Rather than providing 1 or 2 rather long, probably tedious presentations. Some of the advantages of this approach is that the introductory presentation materials and the proposed concepts can be looked at by the reviewers at their own pace and on their own time frame, and they can be revisited as often as needed. It allows people time to take in and better grasp the information and compose their comments, as opposed to the tendency to react immediately to a longish presentation. It can be available also for those who prefer not to attend meetings and prefer not to comment at public meetings. And it allows for all interested parties and all users to have a more opportunity and a more equitable opportunity to comment. And the comments are all provided on a level playing field where they're all kind of taken in through one process. A question and comment opportunities are going to be provided with these videos, so the project team can gather information as we receive them about the concepts, and we can also help answer questions that people might have about the information that they are looking at. What we will be doing is really sending you and the public off to do your homework to look at these videos. And then for the next few weeks or the month of September primarily, giving people an opportunity to look at those videos, weigh in on the comment and questions section. We'll then be scheduling a follow-up public meeting on the project and the concepts for the September 23rd meeting time for the CAC meeting here. And at that time, we'll present the comments that we have heard to date and discuss any future adjustments or further considerations that need to be made to the plan based on the public input. So in just a few minutes, the consultant, Daniel Heyer, is going to be providing a very brief overview of what's contained in those videos to kind of get you started on those. But let me just real quickly outline some of the other engagement steps so that you're clear on how we're going to go about getting this information over the next month. As I said, the focus is going to be on looking at the videos on our website. Serena Gruria from CAPE is here to kind of give you a quick overview of where they are and what that information is going to look like. And she'll be talking in just a minute about that. But we are focused in on getting web information through the website, but we'll also be augmenting that process with pop-up locations in the Belvedere and Mallside area, where the concepts will also be available for reviewing on a more in-person basis, and staff will be available to receive questions and comments. Essentially the same information will be available at the pop-ups. We're also considering placing banner displays along the roadway in strategic locations that will display the potential improvements, and we'll probably be using the same flyer system that we used for the kickoff meeting with the real estate sign container things in the ground, but people walking by along the sidewalk can pick up and again, get the same type of information. So just real quickly, the next steps after that September meeting will be forwarding the work we've done to date for the Board of Supervisors in October to get their initial response and feedback as to the next steps. We can discuss the next steps in more detail later, but at this point in time, I'd like to turn it over to Serena to kind of go over where that information is going to be located. And then Daniel's going to give you a kind of brief overview of the content of those videos. Serena?
Thanks, David. So I am Serena Gruria, and David mentioned CAPE. I'm part of the Communications and Public Engagement Office. I'm the Public Engagement Specialist at the county. I'm going to share my screen. So hopefully you're all aware of the engagement website, the hub we put together for the project. The website address is publicinput.com/Rio Corridor. I'm currently sharing the front page, and hopefully you've all been acclimated to this, and we have some phases, and I'm going to show you up here at the top, the community learning series. This is the content that David was talking about that we've prepared to get everyone up to date and informed about the project thus far so that we can all come back together and have a really good conversation. So at this point, we have 2 podcasts that kind of dig into the work so far, what the design process has been like, and some of the more technical aspects of the plan thus far. These podcasts are also available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, the Apple Podcasts. So wherever you get your podcasts, you can look for Let's Talk Albemarle, and those 2 will show up for you. Scrolling down, we have 2 videos. The first video is the introduction to the Rio Corridor Plan. Daniel's going to go into a little bit of that content here in a second. Directly following that, you'll have a few questions that relate directly to the video itself. You can choose to post publicly or keep your comments private. We will receive them either way. And then coming down here, we have an introduction to the design concepts. we really would encourage you to go in order so that you can get the full understanding of how we got to this point. Then again, some following questions once you've reviewed the material, and then a general bucket for any additional feedback or comments or questions. And then clicking submit will share your information with us. So like David said, we will be having some pop-up opportunities, and the content that we'll share at those opportunities will be much the same as what we have on the website. We're just trying to reach a variety of different, take a variety of different approaches so that we can get as much information from the community as possible. So this website is one opportunity. You can always get in touch with David and the project team directly and share your ideas. But again, we're gonna try to make this as open to everyone on the corridor, people who live, work, play, travel, etc. And so Daniel, I will hand it over to you to go into some of the video information.
Thanks. So I'm Daniel Heyer, and our team at Line and Grade has, for the last 8 months or so, been diving deep into understanding the corridor and the many aspects of the corridor. And what has resulted is, one, a very thorough understanding of both the corridor itself and the deficiencies of the corridor, but also just an abundance of information that we feel like we wanted to share. And so we purposely organized our presentation materials into these 2 videos because we felt like it was important to bring you, the community, and like Serena said, everyone who's using this corridor, whether it's traveling through it on a commute to work or a business owner along it or a resident adjacent to, we wanted everyone to have the ability to know what we know, at least in short form. And so these videos attempt to do that. The first video, titled An Introduction to the Corridor Plan, really uses a series of very simple, almost benign questions to begin to explore and develop a foundational understanding of the corridor itself. For lack of more creative questions, it was who, what, where, when, why, and how type questions, right? But what these questions do is they allow us to dig into things like charting the area's growth over the past 80 years, reviewing historic design guidance that has largely influenced the built environment that we now are dealing with. We explore things like frontage conditions along the corridor and what that means and why that's important. We review important design guidance like access management criteria that's established by the Department of Transportation. We review safety concerns and where those concerns are more concerning than other places. We review noteworthy deficiencies, and we try to explain and capture what is the qualitative experience of the corridor for the various users. We introduce technical terms and try to explain them, things like level of service, and why that's an important understanding for our consideration of design elements. And so the first video, it's about both videos are about 20 minutes. The first video is 20 minutes of establishing a foundational understanding of the corridor. The second video, likewise, presents an abundance of information. This time, we're trying to stand on the shoulders of the foundation of understanding to promote solutions that reflect the deficiencies we've observed, the safety conditions that we've found to be concerning, and we introduce some of our analytical content and how all of that results in a specific set of solutions for various aspects along the corridor. Now, the design concepts are introduced in 2 different methods. We introduce intersection design concepts and we introduce corridor design concepts. And those are uniquely independent in that the deficiencies at intersections are specifically different than the deficiencies along corridors, and the solutions are specifically different. Nonetheless, because we're looking at this corridor in a holistic and unified manner, the corridor and the intersection all work together, but this allows us to reach one of our project goals, which is to bring a unifying design and aesthetic to the corridor from one end to the other. The other thing we talk about in the second video is the phasing of the work. This project will be presented in 2 phases. Phase 1 is Rio Road from the John Warner Parkway heading north and west toward 29. The second phase will be from the John Warner Parkway heading south toward the jurisdictional boundary with the city. And so the design concepts presented in this video are specifically to phase 1. Phase 2 will come at a later date and be presented in likewise fashion. So like Serena and David both said, we feel like this medium of presentation will allow folks to participate in the presentation as if I was giving it to you here tonight, except that if I presented both of these slideshows more or less back to back, everybody would be pretty weary of the conversation by the time I was done, and maybe the feedback we garnered from it would be less helpful. So we're hoping that this medium will give everybody an opportunity to be thoughtful and reflective in their feedback, and also to understand what we understand, at least to the greatest extent practical. We have begun to share the information that you will view in these videos with obviously the county, with the Department of Transportation, and with specific stakeholders along the corridor, because a number of properties we are working toward a mutually beneficial solution in front of their parcels. A good example is K-Tech. K-Tech, because of its proximity to the John Warner intersection, plays an important part in being able to allow us to solve the challenges there. And so we are working with specific stakeholders at this time. And so some of the detail might seem like it's lacking in certain areas, but it's only because we're trying to work toward a specific solution with a specific landowner. Thus far, the feedback we have gotten has been very positive. The county has been very supportive of the design concepts, county staff. The Department of Transportation has been very supportive of what you will see. They've been, I think, very pleased with what we've developed so far. And as far as the specific stakeholders we've already been working with, I think all of them see the benefit of what we're proposing, but we are, again, working with them specifically to reach a good solution in front of their properties where impact might be possible. So again, to echo Serena, I do think it's important to watch the videos in order, because I think if you jump straight into wanting to see what the concept might be, you might miss out on why what's been selected is important, and reflecting on things like how access management plays a very big part on this corridor, and how safety plays a very big part in this corridor. And yes, there is a lot of traffic, and sometimes there's a lot of delays, but when you look at the corridor holistically from one end to the other, what you begin to observe is that all of the solutions need to work together very specifically, and those things are discussed in the first video. So with that, my brief introduction is done. We hope that you engage this material, that you listen to it, both the podcast and the videos. Hope that you share it with your neighbors and your friends. We hope that you leave us your comments. And as we review the comments, we will try to organize them into basically like-minded comments, so we can begin to observe trends in the feedback. So when we come back to you in a month, we might not answer your comment or question specifically, but we're hoping that nobody's questions or comments are one of a kind, that we predict that most comments will follow some general trends, and we'll pick up on those trends. We'll respond accordingly, whether through presentation or through design changes or edits. So that is my brief recap of the 2 videos and why I think they're both very important, and why I hope you watch them both. They're both about 20 minutes. So it's about 40 minutes in total, not much longer than Ted Lasso. So I think you should find time to fit that in.
Okay, thank you. We'll go around and ask if the boards have some clarifying, the members have some clarifying questions. I have one. Serena, you spoke very fast. Tell me the podcast site again, since I'm a big podcast listener, if you don't mind.
Sure. Well, you can go to Spotify or Amazon.
What's the name? What's the name?
Oh, it's Let's Talk Albemarle.
Let's Talk Albemarle. Okay, thank you. Okay, so let me go around, and one of our members also has a couple of words he'd like to share with you, but let me ask if there are any questions first. Nobody has questions. Judy?
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. My question is, you said that there are two 20-minute videos, which will equal 40 minutes, plus the time to answer. Is there the ability to save your information, your comments, after, say, you've watched one of them and you want to come back? And is there a deadline that's stated at the beginning of the survey or the questions?
That's a great question. So once you answer or share your comments and you hit comment, it will be saved into the system. You can come back and add additional comments if you feel. You can also respond to other people's comments if you see fit. In terms of the window to keep this survey open, I think we're gonna try to keep it open as long as possible so that we can collect as much information. Because the follow-up meeting to this is going to respond to all of the input that we've received so far. So David, maybe you should chime in here about the timing on that.
Yeah, I don't think we've set an exact time, but we would certainly keep it open after the September meeting and certainly up to the board meeting. I think we would want to put some point in time where we can kind of do an assessment of what those comments are. But the plan won't be adopted in October. It's going to be fine-tuned after that. So there will be further opportunities to comment down the road. So it's sort of a vague answer, but it'll certainly be open into the October timeframe. And even if we were to cut it off at a certain period of time in October, there will likely be other opportunities to continue to comment on further refinements to the plan.
Okay.
David, if we want to have our comments appear, be proposed and presented at the 23rd meeting, when should we sort of get those done? By the 20th or something?
That might be a question that Daniel will help me with. Certainly we have to have some prep time and to be able to assess and do some tabulation and assessment of those comments. So I think probably at least a week in advance of that meeting would give us the best time to kind of fine tune those comments. Daniel, you think that's a workable schedule? Again, we wouldn't close the comments.
I think the sooner the better in terms of having taken the content in and responded to it. The sooner we can begin to see what people are saying, the sooner we can begin to understand and react to that ourselves. Obviously, we'll keep it open as long as possible. But if you want a question or an idea answered on the 23rd, the sooner you get it to us, the better.
And we're going to be looking on a real-time basis. So we'll be regularly checking them and working from the information that we receive from tomorrow on out.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions before I get to the, okay. Lee, you had a couple of things you wanted to add.
Yeah, if I could just share my screen briefly. See how this works.
On the bottom.
Just wanted you all to see, I haven't seen the videos, so but I have, of course, seen the Kittleson and Associates design of the roundabout at John Warner Parkway and Rio Road East. So I came up with this alternative. This is what's called a dog bone roundabout, where instead of roundabout being a circle, you kind of take the circle and stretch it into an oval and then crunch the center together. And so you have part of the roundabout here, and then the rest of it is farther up here. And what that allows you to do, instead of addressing just the problems at that particular intersection, it also solves the problems at Greenbrier Terrace and Belvedere Boulevard, both of which are very difficult to make left turns out of. under the current situation, and which a roundabout at just at the intersection of Ryle Road and John Warner Parkway won't do alone. It also results in better traffic flow. The through traffic is not restricted as it is in a roundabout, which would basically cause stop and go traffic. And then it also has a pedestrian and bicycle overpass so that you take the pedestrians off the road. Other proposals for unsignalized pedestrian crossings, I think, are probably pretty risky, and they're predicated on the assumption that there really aren't any pedestrians. So, but I think pedestrians would use the facilities more if it was safe to cross. So if you have a bus stop as shown here on the, in this particular area, it's northbound Ryle Road, it gives you a way to get across to K-Tech, which is, this is their K-Tech driveway. Also, it accommodates a roundabout at what's now Ryle Point instead of Parkway Place. But so now Dunlora Drive is no longer blocked off that you can't turn left there. It's much easier to get in and out of there. It's much easier to get in and out of Ryle Point. And this works with their plan because the buildings that they're proposing are south of this. So that just something to keep in mind while you're looking at the other videos. Because I'm sure the comments don't give me the ability to post attachments, but as you look at that, just keep in mind there are other alternatives. And cost-wise, interestingly, there was $9 million in smart scale funding for the roundabout. This would use about the same amount of funding. You have $1 million here for retaining wall because of the terrain. You've got about $1 million in right-of-way acquisition up here, $4 million for the construction costs, $2 million for the pedestrian bridge, and $1 million for the engineering, brings you to the same $9 million. So it's totally feasible to utilize that funding for an alternate design of the roundabout. So that was it for me. Okay. And I don't know how to share my screen, but I'll figure it out, I guess.
Better. There it is. Okay. So one does bring up one question that Lee had struck me as he was talking, and I knew he was going to do this type of presentation. How do people give you things like Lee has suggested, drawings where they have some ideas?
So on the public input site, Lee, if you're able to convert that into a different type of file, like a PNG or a JPEG, I believe you can upload that to the system.
Okay, thank you.
Pick the box that you want to respond to and upload it into that. Maybe at the bottom, the final question that asks for, like, you know, the general bucket of responses, that would be appropriate there.
And if there's any complication or difficulty with doing that, you can also send it to me through email, and I will make sure that it gets documented.
Okay, thank you.
So that sort of brought me to another question. There are a number of people I know in the area who are really sort of blind to this, and I don't know whether we've gotten out. I know I've spoken to David a number of times about an outreach program of some sort. And people who are knowledgeable and actually know how to use computers, let alone people who don't have access to computers. Is there something going to be at the library, for example, where they can, a poster and telling them how they can access the site? Is there something going to be at the center? We have the center director here that will do that. There's a whole bunch of areas that I don't think you're really reaching out enough to get local people's input.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I've been in touch with the center and one of the pop-up locations. So they're going to get back to me about when the most, the most high traffic days are. And we're going to do a pop-up there in person. But that's a great idea to have a poster up there in the bulletin board. Same with Northside Library. In the past, they've been really good about sharing flyers that we give them to people who come in. That's another great idea. We're also going to have some yard signs that have the website and the QR code so that people can find out about the opportunities to be in person at those pop-ups. Similarly at K-Tech, they have a bulletin board. So we're going to try, and again, any additional places that you feel would be good representation of people who haven't been engaged yet, definitely send that information to David, because we're going to try as hard as we can to get this out there. So, I went door to door and some of the apartment complexes and shared flyers there. So any opportunity that we have to get more people involved, just share that with David.
Okay, so the other sort of area is I'm more in the phase 2 section. And you ought to be starting now to reach out to, I don't mean to lecture you, but it would be good if we started now really to reach out to the phase 2 so you get a better sense of what people think down that portion of the road as well.
I think we're at a point in time where we are beginning to ratchet up. I think Daniel and the consultant team is at the point in time they are with phase 1 now. They can really engage in phase 2, and Daniel, Serena, and I are getting into that next step of notifying people. As soon as jointly with these pop-up locations that we're talking about for phase 1, we'll probably provide some information for phase 2. We don't want to confuse people, but we will be at very shortly within the next 2 months to begin engaging and making people aware of phase 2 is underway.
Tom, you had a question?
Yes, I was concerned. Have you thought about the congregations at the churches, getting some of it, trying to get them involved?
So I reached out directly to all the churches along the corridor, and we've met with, I think with one of the churches so far in a Zoom meeting.
City Church was a participant with our meeting with K-Tech when we went over concepts. I believe that's the only church that has, or religious assembly location that's gotten back to us, though, I believe.
Okay.
Audrey, we have someone in the public attendee that has a question, has had their hand up for a while.
Okay, why don't we ask the public first? Audrey, I see you come after. Why don't you bring in the public person, please?
All right. LL Drummond, please unmute yourself and start speaking.
Thank you, Marty. I think you addressed a good part of my question, but so we should assume for phase 2 that is not running serially, but that will run kind of at the same time. We're trying to figure out with phase 2. I mean, is that going to be a year from now when ideas are shared, or is that going to be 6 months from now? I just didn't know how you're staging that.
I can try to respond to that. So if you feel like phase 2 is where you are more influenced by the study, I would still encourage you to at least watch some of the phase 1 information, because phase 2 and phase 1 overlap, and they overlap substantially at the John Warner Parkway and the influence of the John Warner Parkway. Phase 2, we are actively working on design concepts for now. So it is running behind phase 1 in development, but it's not by much now. So we're catching that up. I would expect that you would be hearing from us again in the next couple of months for presentation of videos and likewise presentation to what phase 1 is having now. So I do think you would be well informed to pay attention to what we've just posted in the podcast, which go into a lot of the history as well, which covers phase 1 and phase 2.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me follow up a little bit on that, Daniel. Audrey, I see you, and I'll come back to you in a second. There are some decisions that are going to be made by the board on phase 2 before it seems that you're going to reach conclusions on phase 2. There's some land, as you know, as I'm sure you know. that are in the phase 2 section that could be influenced by some of your findings. And so that's going to come after the board is scheduled to make a decision on some of the zoning applications. Is that right?
So I may ask David Benish to also join in. Do you want to go first, David? I don't want to overspeak for you.
Well, I'm going to talk for you then, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but okay. Some of those projects that are under review in phase 2 are actually being incorporated into the work and the assessments done in phase 1. So the Rio Point location and the Rio Crossing are on the radar screen, Rio Commons, excuse me, are on the radar screen of the consultant. And I think those projects have been part and parcel of some of the decision making and recommendations going into phase 1. So I think that's the primary area where we have rezonings in place. One of the reasons that we do want to bring phase 1 forward to the Board of Supervisors in an October timeframe is to report out to them where we are with our concepts, because there are some decisions that do need to be made, actually more related to the design work for the roundabout for John Warner Parkway. But we do want the direction that we're headed in the board's hands quickly so the board can provide us direction and the board can be aware of what's moving forward in this study as they take on the rezoning requests that we'll be seeing in October and November. Rio Commons, if you recall, is a by right development. So there is really not a lot of latitude in that project review. So Daniel, I don't know if you can pick up on me or correct anything that I'd said.
I was only simply going to add that when we do go to the board in October, the board will get an update comprehensive to phase 1 and phase 2, because at that point in time, phase 2 will be almost entirely caught up to phase 1. And so the board will probably get the first dish of that, or about the same time as the CAC. So be looking at October for phase 2 information to begin flowing more freely.
We certainly are going to continue to take public comment, but at least that first draft of work on phase 2 will be able to vet with the board and begin distributing that out.
And why I don't want to be argumentative about it, but we seem to be mixing the phases a little bit. And it seems to me that I'm getting to the point where I don't understand what the phase 2 activity is going to be relative to the phase 1. I understand your point about what the board can do and can't do in terms of zoning and site survey that also can be addressed. And it just seems to me that we're not getting a clear picture right now.
I'm not sure I understand what you mean by not getting a clear picture. Could you maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
You said you would go up to John Warner Parkway. How far past John Warner Parkway are you going down?
Yeah, the language we use is called the effective area of the intersection, which probably doesn't mean anything to you per se. But when you consider the effective area of an intersection, such as John Warner Parkway, usually the distance away from the intersection you include could be between 500 and 1,000 feet. Okay. So a lot of the frontage along the Rio Points project has been considered. But again, when you watch the video, not to give any spoilers, but I think the video will clarify a lot of what's happening along the frontage of that parcel.
Okay, thank you. I won't pursue that any further. Audrey, you had a question, and we'll move on. You're zoned. You're muted, Audrey.
How about that?
Okay.
Okay. I am excited to hear all the wonderful outreach that you guys are doing. I don't think I've ever seen that in recent history. So thank you very much. Might I suggest to place signs where people can safely pull off the road to pick up information or copy the information from the signs We don't need more problems on Rio or John Warner. And also, so many of us use that who don't live on the corridor to get anywhere. And so some signs along 29 North, I would suggest, and maybe some signs into Carsbrook or the roads leading into the Meadows and those other communities, Greenbrier. Thank you.
You bring up a really good point when Daniel, David, and I talk about where we should have pop-ups and where we should put signs. We can't, it's really hard to find a safe spot, and that just speaks to the nature of the corridor right now. So again, if you all find that you would find a suitable space for a pop-up or a sign, please let us know.
ACAC, the new grocery store, 7-Eleven at Rio, the ice cream store, Carsbrook.
Okay.
I'll make the rounds with some flyers for sure.
And shopping.
I can help. You just I'll put some up around 29.
Okay, shopping as well. Okay, thank you, Daniel, Serena. I think we're finished with this session, this portion of the meeting. We'll move on to the next item. The next item is a VDOT review process. Adam Moore. I saw him someplace. There we go. Adam, you have the microphone.
I represent VDOT's Charlottesville residency. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, now we can, yeah.
Okay. And so I was asked here to just talk sort of informally about VDOT's role in the land development process with Albemarle County. So I guess I will just start with very broad strokes, and then I think the expectation is to answer some questions. Is that right? So I'll start first with the simplest, and that is VDOT participating in the site plan review process for Albemarle County. I think it's important to remember that VDOT as an agency does not have any say over what types of land use are allowed, period. When we are reviewing a site plan, we're focused on the entrance and how we expect traffic to operate at that entrance with respect to the trips generated by the use and the existing traffic on the through street. So our focus is very much about what disturbance, what changes will take place inside the existing right-of-way. And our requirements for plans don't get any broader, are not able to be any broader than perhaps requiring a turn lane or an intersection modification of some sort if they're entering, right in the vicinity of their entrance. We're not able to require off-site improvements of any kind, not able to require, contributions to other projects or anything, even if they're in the vicinity. It's only on-site improvements to ensure that their entrance, their access is safe and efficient. So as part of that process, either myself or someone from my group is there at pre-application meetings along with county staff. And so we're there from the very earliest stages, really assisting people get to approved plans and explore what their options are, as early on as possible. When the site plans are complete, they often end in a permit with VDOT for the construction activities related to that plan. Just as you would if you were putting in a individual private driveway, you would get a permit through VDOT for an entrance to apartment complex, a restaurant, or anything else. And so we administer that part of the land use process as well. So that's the simplest. And then more complicated is VDOT's role in rezoning, comprehensive plan updates, and things of that sort. With those programs, VDOT's role is to advise the county staff, and the Board of Supervisors, the Planning Commission, on what impacts they can reasonably expect from the proposed plans, whether that's a comprehensive plan, a small area plan, and we're looking at a large area, or very specific redevelopment of a site, apartments, for instance, or perhaps, you know, an outdoor shopping mall or something like that. That's going to create changes in the vicinity's transportation demand. And so we are equipped to help advise the county on what impacts may result in that development. Now, as many of you are probably aware, very often those proposed developments also bring with them proffers, you know, additional improvements or contributions to improvements to help mitigate or offset some of their impacts, right? So VDOT's role is also to understand those proposed improvements and use them to provide context for our advisement on the overall impacts. Now that advisement to the staff takes place through the full course of the rezoning. VDOT produces review letters for every submission of the rezoning to help inform the assigned planner to provide context for their staff report. But then also, as many of you have noticed, we're often present at public hearings as well to answer questions in the moment from the Planning Commission or the Board of Supervisors. I would say that's the broad strokes. Marty, is there anything specific that you want me to
I wonder if you could talk
first?
just a little bit more about your specific site review process in terms of entranceways and.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So there are, when we review a plan, there are specific entrance types, and those are pulled right out of what's called the VDOT Road Design Manual. The largest, most significant of those is the commercial entrance. And it is flexible in its dimensions, but its requirement is that a design vehicle be identified, and a design vehicle is a vehicle that's going to be a frequent user of the entrance. And so that the entrance geometry, its width, the radii, how easy it is to swing into the entrance, is adequate for the vehicles that are going to be regularly using the entrance. For instance, in a neighborhood, you would not expect tractor trailers to be very frequently navigating the entrance. So the entrance might be a little bit tighter, but you would expect very many UPS trucks, FedEx trucks, perhaps school buses and the like. And so, you know, those are often the vehicles that we are using to design those type of entrances.
Okay.
Stepping down from that are smaller and more flexible entrance types for like a low volume commercial entrance would be perhaps for like a cell tower or a power substation, or, you know, something that's generating a very small amount of traffic relatively. And then down from that is your private driveway, a driveway for, you know, 1 to 3 or 4 houses.
Oh, in a small development that's already existing, I mean, we have a small development, we live in a small development that's already existing. And if another development comes in opposite it with an entrance, how do you judge whether that's a good design from that standpoint? Do you have some design rules or traffic?
We have guidance.
Mm-hmm.
So that guidance has essentially 2 principles. But the first and foremost is to avoid conflicting left turns, right? So you can imagine that the simplest would be for the entrance to align so the vehicles could turn left into both at the same time without conflicting. That's not always feasible for every site and every combination of sites and roads. So if that's not feasible, then there's an amount and direction of offset that would be necessary so that you could either turn left in front of each other or pass each other and then turn left behind. And that is really site specific. But the guidance is very simple. And so that's often an exercise we go through with the design engineers. They have tools, a lot of times they're called auto turn diagrams, which show the wheel path of various design vehicles as they make turns within specific geometry. And that's something that they can lay on the plans and share exhibits with me saying, look, here's how these vehicles will be able to navigate without hitting a car waiting to come out, without swinging into an opposing lane or something like that.
So you make a recommendation to the board if as to what should be done, is that right? But it's still up to the board to make a judgment, to approve or not approve either the layout, is that right?
No, that's not exactly right. The VDOT must approve the entrance location.
Okay.
And that's why that's one facet of our review early on, even through a rezoning, is so that there's no misunderstanding about what will be an acceptable entrance location. But oftentimes the end product of an approved rezoning is a general development plan or a concept plan, but it is not set in stone to, the entrance is at precisely this location. We try to allow a little bit of flexibility when they get to site plan, because they're doing a lot more site engineering. They've done a lot more survey work at that point that they've not necessarily done at the rezoning stage.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Judy?
Hi, Adam. I have a question that's not related to what you've just spoken to, but I thought as long as you're here, is there any way that we can get the yellow uprights that are on Rio Road, that next to Dunlora Park and leading into Dunlora subdivision, fixed? We've got a couple of them that are askew. They're not vertical anymore. They're more horizontal.
We can look at that. I think now's a good time for me to say that anybody can submit work orders for things like this for VDOT, and that way it gets sorted right to the right work group within VDOT, geographically and function. You can call 1-800-4ROAD, FORROAD, or you can go to the website. If you go to the VDOT homepage, virginiadot.org, and there's a link at the very top for work orders. I think it's called my.vdot.gov, I believe.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have two attendees. Carolyn, you want to bring them on board or raise their hands?
Michael, go ahead.
Hello, do you allow for bicycle and pedestrian in the entrance corridor? I'm not hearing much about that. I'm only hearing about cars. Thank you.
We do allow for it. We have design standards for that. The choice to whether or not to put it in is very much up to the locality. We rely on the county to have a good understanding of the community's wants and needs and also priorities. So, a lot of times one of the important tasks of the county staff working with the Board of Supervisors is prioritizing project applications for funding. And so oftentimes pedestrian accommodations or bicycle accommodations are part of the projects they're pursuing. Sometimes they're even standalone projects like a shared use path. There's a couple shared use path projects that have been pursued recently. So it's definitely something at the forefront and considered with, I would say, almost every project, public project, and very often in rezoning and private development projects.
And our master plans, comprehensive plans will provide that guidance at the county level as to where those facilities are desired or recommended. We also have a regional bicycle and pedestrian plan. I think it's still called the Thomas Jefferson Regional Pedestrian and Bicycle Plan, which also provides guidance not only in the development areas, but out in our rural areas. And that's what we look at as the county's guidance to VDOT and to applicants in providing those facilities.
Next, we have David Samples.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. My question is about how VDOT interfaces with the county with respect to not new developments, but continuing to grow developments, like a Belvedere, where 20 years ago it was a certain size, but now it's into many phases later in its development, and apparently will continue into the future to build out more homes. I was wondering how VDOT revisits that periodically.
Well, Belvedere specifically, and most developments in Albemarle County, the great majority, have public roads proposed, which means that VDOT assumes maintenance once complete. So along the way, my group, VDOT, is reviewing those road and site plans along the way, making sure that the roads that VDOT will be assuming someday responsibility for are designed and constructed correctly. Now, in terms of number of units or look and appearance or anything like that, that's really up to county planning and zoning, and what is on file as approved.
And those developments, in certain cases, may be developments that are what we refer to as by right developments, which limit our authority to not approve them based on deficiencies of infrastructure. Where there is a development like Belvedere, where there was a rezoning, we look at the overall impact of that rezoning, get VDOT's input on the overall transportation system that is proposed for that development and is approved as part of that rezoning. And then those subsequent phases being built out over time should be built consistent with those expectations that were part of the approval process.
Okay. I think we've cleared attendees' questions. I cleared everybody else's questions. Adam, thank you. That was actually very helpful. We appreciate you taking the time. We'll move on to the next agenda item. Liaison update. Ned.
All right, good evening, everyone. It's hard to believe a month has passed already. One of the things, I was checking my email there to see, I was going to maybe get late day pictures, but I'll get these pictures at some point. Hopefully you've all driven up and seen that where the medians were and we had this tall weed issue, that the tall portion is down. There are still cracks present. You probably see some new growth coming up out. I think the long-term solution is, Lance gave me an update today, was you have to burn them out, fill the cracks. So that's a whole nother process, but I'm glad to see it was a pilot project. There are plenty of areas like this in the county where they're attacking, where it's not, there's not grass there, it's concrete, but there's still things growing up out of the concrete, and they're not on a mowing schedule because they're not grass medians. So areas like this, the area up there on Rio, as you approach 29, was a pilot project to start attacking this type of thing. I appreciate them getting after it. And then hopefully that'll start to move around the rest of the county. In terms of what's been going on at the board level, I mean, the one project that the Wetzel property project, that's been obviously got moved off of the August agendas. I know that was a big conversation at the last meeting, so that's coming forward later this year. At the county board meeting level, as it relates to this committee, I mean, we passed a firearm ordinance, was probably the biggest item that we've done. Outside of that, you know, there's work that's being done on the Crozet master plan and things like that. You've probably seen in the news that indirectly maybe impacts the urban ring and the other development areas, but nothing specific to this area. And then I'm happy to answer questions about watch list items. I've got a slew of them that I had a good meeting last month. It's probably been about 3 weeks ago with the county executive. So a lot of things that were on this watch list and some other constituents' concerns were all addressed in that, and things are ongoing with it. So there are some items I could have updates on. There are others that are still being worked on, and may not have an update now, but probably will in the near future or by the next meeting.
It's fuzzy in the back.
Oh, no.
Huh?
Judy, you had some questions. We'll handle the watch list, I think, separately, and we'll come back to you.
Let me.
Okay.
Marty?
Yeah.
Audrey has her hand up. So
yeah, I saw that. And Judy, did you say you want? I saw her hand up too. So why don't you go, Audrey, and then we'll come back to you, Judy.
Thank you for the update, Ned, and thank you very much for reviewing that list. I was wondering if we could get a written update so we don't have to spend meeting time asking questions about what was on the list and what's got worked on and things like that.
Yeah, that's good, because I tend to get them in emails, and I can even maybe cut and paste the updates I get from the emails and drop them in. Yeah, that's doable.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Judy, no? Okay. Did you want to say something, Judy?
Yes. Okay, hi, Ned. Would like to ask, do you have an update status report about the culverts and the fire hydrant from Dunlora Park?
Not yet.
Okay. And then the second thing I would like to ask about is on October the 24th, 2019, this group adopted by unanimous vote a resolution to update the Places29 master plan. Now, I could go on ahead and either one, read it to you or send it back to you, but just wondering what's the status? That was 2019. And we haven't heard anything. And then what's of concern is that I know that the Crozet master plan has been in the works, and they're now talking about a middle density. So if that, you know, we're talking perhaps about parity. So from one area to another, by the time our master plan was to get reviewed, it's going to be a moot point because there's not going to be too much land left to develop. So I'll just let you answer that. Thank you.
Well, to my knowledge, I'll have to go back, but it's not in our work plan that the county works with CDD for the Places29 yet. So it's got to get programmed into that work plan. So, I mean, understood that you guys passed the resolution and won it, as do other areas of the county, right? So like the Rio Road corridor study, for example, that took a little bit more of an urgency. I got the board to pass that, and that got added into the work plan. When you do something like that, it bumps something else out or down the list. So with the current work plan and the current stance of the board, we're trying very hard not to add to the list right now and get everything that's been on the list done and through. And that's an ongoing struggle, as any staff member could probably tell you. The board is very good at adding to the list. So when I say the list, I mean, that work plan's been in place since 19. I mean, COVID kind of put everything on hold. So nothing was going to be getting added that was new, with the exception of the corridor study that did get added. So it's a matter of every time that work plan comes in front of the board, it's the board has to decide what CDD is going to be working on. And those type of master planning pieces have to get worked into the plan accordingly. With the current list, the slot has not been available for that. David, I don't know if you have any other ideas on timing of master plans or different planning parts around the county in terms of cycles or not, but that's the current reality, is that it's not on the list and not on the immediate list anyway.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to go into too much detail about what we think is on the future horizon, but what we know is in that work program is to begin work on the full comprehensive plan. And I do think you can see that you might see a little bit more focus in on the land use components of all the master plans in that comprehensive plan update. So it certainly, we don't have the Places 29 master plan as a focus for review, but that land use component of the comprehensive plan, which does cover the all of the development area, will probably get a pretty good, more detailed review. And that's upcoming, hopefully beginning, I believe, in the spring of the year, and will be for the next year or two. But the emphasis in the work program was really to get the comprehensive plan updated, look at some of the major inconsistencies in our land use plan and bring those consistencies, you know, get those things cleaned up, look forward for the next 20 years at a micro level, and then be able to update our zoning ordinance, which is really important to implementing those goals of the comprehensive plan. We have a pretty archaic zoning ordinance that kind of needs to be freshened up to do the things that we really need to have the type of community we want. So that's been the bigger focus. But I honestly, as Ned said, the Places 29 master plan is not in the work program at this point in time.
Now, how things free up, like a big one will be the Rio 29 small area plan was a huge undertaking, and it's been years. And once, you know, we still have the form-based code portion of it to get done, which if Nancy were here, I'm sure would be making a comment about. But the idea is that, you know, once something like that's off the plate and moved past, that's what frees up capacity. So the work list is what gets plugged in after those things go. So it's just the reality of the situation. It's not that it's unimportant or that it won't be done, but the small area plan was certainly put as priority ahead of, and the Rio Road corridor study on a smaller scale in this area was put into play, obviously because of smart scale and the issues of the transportation issues there.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll come back to you in a minute, Ned. Dan, you want to sort of give us an output of Planning Council?
Sure, they've covered a lot. I mean, most of the work has been outside of the Rio district and discussion, a lot around the Crozet plan, as Ned has already alluded to. We have had a lot of discussions at the Planning Commission level around preparing for the comprehensive plan updates and identifying the different areas that have mismatches between that and the zoning and things can be done there. So I don't, you know, get in detail, but I think it was pretty well covered by Ned and David of the work that the Planning Commission's been looking at.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Questions for Dan? Okay, so let's move on to the last item. We have three things. September meeting, which I think we've already alluded to. We're going to come back to the Rio corridor plan with more specifics, some implementation. Yes, Dan, David?
Yeah, let me do one thing real quickly before I touch on that, but just a quick update to follow up on board items. I just wanted to let you know that the Rio form-based code is going to the Board of Supervisors on September 1 for public hearing. So I just wanted to finish up kind of the board update information. I thought I'd let you know that. Regarding back to the September meeting, I believe you were made aware that on September 27th, there is going to be a joint CAC meeting where the Albemarle County Equity Profile is going to be presented. Most of the CACs are actually canceling their meeting. As we mentioned in the Rio Road corridor study, we are targeting the date of your meeting for that public meeting, but you do not have to convene your own meeting. We can do that as a separate standalone meeting. So unless you have other items that you want to discuss in September, I would recommend you actually cancel your CAC meeting, and what we would be scheduling is a general public meeting on the Rio corridor, which you all would be invited to. And it probably made that more complicated than it is, but recognize that you will have a CAC meeting the following Monday on September 27th to go over that joint meeting to go over the equity profile.
How will the members of the CAC be able to participate? Let's say if you have the meeting, the Rio corridor study, will we just be attendees, or how will you handle that?
Yeah, you would be attendees like all other attendees would be. You would be an equivalent participant, able to participate in that webinar type meeting. We have no problem following up in October with you if you wanted to make that an agenda item on your October meeting, but you would be a person.
I'm sorry, that would be after the board meeting, though.
Mm-hmm.
What do people feel? Peter, I see.
Are these Zoom meetings?
Yes.
There'll be Zoom meetings, but there'll be a webinar format like most public hearings where you'll write in comments and be able to vote on certain questions that we have.
Peter, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry I've been off video, but I've got bad internet connection at home today. I'm kind of what I think Marty was going. I think we need to, this is a huge issue, and I think our group really needs some robust time to digest what we hear from the public over the next month. And I would suggest we keep our September meeting to make sure we have ample time before the board talks about this study, and go ahead and participate in the joint meeting too. And also, David, when is that Monday meeting? I don't remember. I don't have that on my calendar.
I don't have it either.
It is September 27th at 6:30.
And I'll send out invitations the Thursday before the meeting to everybody. It's already on that calendar for September, but there's no information other than the Zoom link and the date.
Yeah, I think Peter, David expressed my feeling as well. I think we have a fairly direct interest. We were once going to have an advisory board, a community citizens board to help participate. We had designated a member who we've never put to work. So I think it could really be useful to keep the September meeting and have you guys come and make the presentation to our board.
Well, we won't be making two presentations. It'll be one presentation that we'll be making to the general public. So I can discuss with Cape how we would set that meeting up. I think it would be, you could hold your meeting and then we would adjourn to the other meeting, and then you could reconvene back for additional comments to us at that point in time, separate from that public meeting process, if you'd like.
How long will your meeting be?
Well, what we're hoping with this process is that we don't get into long presentations where people's eyes gloss over. So we're really going to try to focus it in on the fact that the public has done their homework. Our focus is going to be reporting back what we heard already from all of the participating public, and what sort of information that we've gleaned from that, and what sort of further considerations we need to make to the plan. So that's kind of the focus that we have. I think that presentation probably could be 20 to 30 minutes, but we have to see what information that we get back to really know how long that's going to be. So that's...
I think, because we had talked about this before, that you have to separately work it out so we have direct feedback afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, I think that's your prerogative. We can certainly continue on with the meeting on the 27th. We would like to make sure that the meeting is a broad participation meeting. So probably the concept would be opening your meeting, adjourning to that meeting, and then reconvening to have separate comments back.
That would be fine. Yeah,
I mean,
Peter, go ahead.
The September 23rd CAC has already been promoted on the agenda, and the center put it out in our social media that will be an important follow-up meeting. It's already been publicized So I just reinforced that I think we need to keep it. I'm a little disappointed that we're not having a CAC meeting and a separate public meeting. I think it's just such a critical issue. I think we can have a lot of feedback on the feedback that comes out in the next month. And I think this group deserves its own hour. I'd divert the whole next meeting for this group to talk about what the public's had to say and to potentially take a stance on some of what's in there and make recommendations and have a separate public meeting. If that's at all possible, that would be my preference.
You haven't set, I think Peter has a good point. You haven't set the other meeting up yet. So you could have two meetings, one for us and one for them. It'll give you practice.
Yeah, practice, I guess, is good. I think we can work with it. I do want to indicate that the product is not a complete project. When it goes to the board, it's a report back to the board as we're giving to the public on the status of the work. There may be additional work that the consultant clearly would need to work on. So there would be additional time in October for the CAC to provide relevant comment. It would be after the board meeting. I do recognize that issue. So I think you could provide comments on the 23rd, but if you feel the strong need to reconvene and discuss it further, we could also do that at the October meeting. We're endeavoring to get both of these phases moving forward as best we can. I think we could do two separate presentations, but there are logistics involved in doing two meetings and two presentations. So I'd really prefer that we could at least do them in one night and maybe figure out a way for you to participate with one meeting, and then we can come back and have more direct conversation with you after that meeting.
Go ahead, and then I'll come back to you.
I just have possible compromise. Maybe we could move our October meeting earlier, or possibly review the material at our September meeting. We're going to present at the 27th meeting, and you wouldn't have to show up. We could just possibly review it among ourselves, presented by one of us, and maybe Marty or Lee or somebody. Just an alternative to you having to be here and make the presentation.
For FOIA reasons, you can't have a meeting without county staff, without David being there and me recording it for that purpose.
Yeah. Which, you know, we can work that out, but yeah, that's a logistics issue.
Rick, go ahead. Rick, you're muted.
There we go. Well, I was just thinking what David is saying, that the presentation that he's proposing to do, sounding like it's relatively short, even if the presentation allows for some public comment as part of it, even if that whole piece of it took an hour, we do that first, and then we go into our regular meeting after that, where then we become panelists and get promoted to be panelists instead of being just guests. And then we just could, and then we not only consider what we have gleaned in the meantime, but also what we've heard from the public that night. And we can still probably get it done in 2 hours.
I'm a little confused. The group meeting, the group CAC meeting is on Monday the 27th.
That's the one that's for
the 23rd.
Right.
It's a Thursday and a Monday.
Our meeting, this RIO COC.
Carolyn, I think what we're saying is our CAC meeting's on the 23rd, which is also when David was proposing to do the public presentation of the proposals. So I'm just saying, we have one meeting which you staff, and we just do the presentation, the county presentation first, and then we attend that as guests, and then we get promoted to panelists, and we continue on with our CAC meeting.
That would probably be more or less the structure we would do. I think we'd want to keep the public meeting this is a little bit of semantics, but separate, and then close that meeting for the general public, but then you could reconvene your meeting and speak as a CAC, and if you wanted to make a comments, motion, and action as a CAC, you would do that at that second half, which would be your actual CAC meeting.
Right, that sounds fine to me.
Will you have David hire for our part of the meeting as well? Not only
to come up with some more money, but yeah, I mean.
Well,
no, I'm just teasing. I think probably I would talk to Daniel, but I think he'd be willing to listen in, but you know, we can talk about that. Certainly, I could be there to receive your comments.
No, I think we want interaction. I think that's the issue. I think at some point, I think there's some interaction, some clarifications, you know, more technical details. I mean, this has been, I mean, we've been at this now for what, since last December, and we've had sort of fits and starts on this a little bit, and it hasn't been as smooth in terms of coming out and being open as I thought it was going to be, frankly. Just be frank about it.
Well,
there's a lot of
I think you'll find, sorry, I think you'll find the videos will clear a lot of the air that I think you are looking for with the content, and you know, it's open to you, but it's open to everybody. As far as I understand it, I'm happy to talk to David about this after the meeting, but when we come back in September, whatever the format may be, the format as I envision it is actually an acknowledgement of what the comments are, and we can have a discussion about them, but again, we're trying to keep this open to everybody. And so we want the comments on the website so that we can say, this is what the collective voice is saying. And the collective voice, it sounds like this. And then we can talk about that. And I think that would be a very fruitful conversation. But I do think if you watch the videos, you'll be delightfully surprised.
I think too.
Wait, Ned, did you want to say something?
If I could just weigh in here, I mean, and I will get back to you if delightfully is achieved. You know, this CAC, the purpose of the CACs are these volunteers come together, they put the watch list together, they live with these issues in a different way. And then they're to be advocates and go back into the community. So when I think of like an application, like we heard earlier tonight, you know, they invite those applicants to come so that they can fulfill their community meeting portion. But that's at the CAC's pleasure, really. It's almost become like that's just an automatic now. And if no public show up, the CAC will dive in and kind of fulfill that portion of it. But I don't want this to get confused. The CAC meeting is a monthly meeting. And for it to get canceled or put over for a public meeting for convenience sake, I'm not going to agree with that necessarily. I don't disagree that the CAC should be able to weigh in on it, just like we're weighing in on, you know, Chick-fil-A problems as cars try to get in and out. So David, I mean, I'm not meaning to throw my weight around here, but I think the CAC with talking about these issues, and we'll continue to talk about them after the Rio, the Wetzel property is decided, because the corridor study goes much beyond that particular application. The corridor study informs a lot about that, but then it's going to be an ongoing conversation down the road. And the CAC, I suspect, will be touching this topic every single month. So to short one of those opportunities out at this critical time, I think would be problematic in my view. And however, I think Rick's idea of doing the 2 meetings in one night would help with staff time. I think that's a reasonable compromise. But in any case, I would think that we need to work that out so that the CAC can still do its work as it leads up to both the application I know they're concerned about, and I would say probably have varying opinions on, and then the ongoing corridor work as it goes beyond that particular land use application. So I'm hoping we can find a way to do this where the CAC can still have their meeting. If I'm providing a written liaison update, I suspect Daniel would be fine to do the same. You could cut those portions off the time. You could focus fully on that topic, and I think it would be successful. So I'm hoping we can find a way to make that happen.
Well, I think we could certainly have the meeting as a CAC meeting. I think the most desirable structure is what Rick alluded to, and I think it makes for the cleanest structure, that we have a portion that is a public meeting where all comments are received, and then we reconvene as the CAC, and the CAC can speak on behalf of the CAC as a stakeholder. And I think we're fine doing that. That's a little bit of a logistic issue. That we've done that type of thing before with CAC meetings, as I understand it. So I think we can get that done. The question was, and I think the follow-up question is, whether there's anything else on the agenda that you need to have for your regular CAC meeting other than conversation and discussion of what you heard at the public meeting on the Rio Corridor study, and potentially updates, and which wouldn't take that much more time to do as well. So it's a single item CAC meeting, which is follow-up discussion of the public meeting being held on the corridor plan.
That would be fine.
Yeah, we can do that. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to go over the watch. Let me just say this. Then we have any new watch items, and then Ned, you can tell us about Chick-fil-A again, and nothing.
So Chick-fil-A, I mean, there were a number of things on our watch list. Like Judy mentioned, the culverts, the Chick-fil-A issue. I know, like the stream and the water issue. I mean, yes, all of these I have engaged in conversations and discussions on now. I just don't have updates on all of those at this point.
Okay,
so I'm letting it play out, and as I get them, then I'll pass those along.
Okay, and I'll send you the list so you'll have it, so you can use it as a checklist for next month. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Any other items before I close the meeting? Thank you. Then we will.
Oh, not for me.
I do.
Audrey, no, you're not allowed any other. Oh, Audrey, go ahead.
I don't know if you heard, Ned, about the big traffic jam on the first day of school at Woodbrook, but it was quite significant, and apparently tied up traffic quite a bit at the Woodbrook and 29 with buses going in and out. So I haven't heard anything from the neighborhood today, but I'll find out more. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that whenever I'm more fully aware that the press attends our meetings and writes articles, and I refer to the Rio Point article. And I want to be sure that we as members are aware that any comments we make as an individual and not as the CAC in general. So I think we need to be aware of our pronouns and stick with I's rather than we's when making comments.
That's
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I was stuck in my own traffic waiting to drop off an Albemarle high school student, but I've noticed even in 2 days later that has subsided. So I think hopefully it's not going to be an ongoing problem as everyone figures out the new patterns that schools have in place.
Yeah, yeah. And more parents are driving.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I will send out to everybody the list I send to Ned, so you have the checklist and you can bug me if I've missed something. So take care, have a good, stay cool, I guess is the word of the week, and we'll see you on September 23rd.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Great.